I'm Kevin Atlas, and I'm bringing some of the most successful, most inspirational human beings on this planet into your classrooms. They beat the odds, they overcame adversity, and through that, they found a way to believe. I've partnered with Varsity Brands to provide the answers, the blueprints. I have this heart that bleeds for the youth of this country, so I fight as a soldier for change, and I want us all to learn to lead, and not just to elevate ourselves, but to elevate each other. I'm looking for students nationwide to take action from what they learned from this series. This is how the world changes. It starts with you.
Often we are influenced by those we surround ourselves with. We change who we are based upon those around us, sometimes without even knowing. For instance, if you hang around 5 confident people, you become the 6th. If you hang around 5 intelligent people, you become the 6th. If you hang around 5 millionaires, you become the 6th. But if you hang around 5 fools, you become the 6th. Understanding the importance of building a healthy environment around yourself will dictate your growth. I want to introduce you to someone who grew up in a terrible environment, but chose to surround herself with positive influences, all while pursuing healthy habits to achieve her goals. Geena Aguilar, better known as Geena the Latina, has been a radio host for 14 years on 93.3 in San Diego. In 2018, she was recognized as Woman of the Year by a California Assemblywoman. In 2019, she was recognized as San Diego's Radio Personality of the Year. Her successes, however, did not come without sacrifice. Some of us aren't blessed with the perfect upbringings or the best environments to grow up as a child. Geena shows us that even if your circumstances are incredibly harsh, you don't need to become a product of them. Geena's story can teach us so much about social and self-awareness, the power of recovering optimism in the face of family tragedy, and then applying that optimism towards personal achievement and community empowerment.
My mom and my dad, and I had 2 brothers who were a few years younger than me. And we grew up playing sports. We were always at the park. They were played every single day. My mom and dad were really into sports, so we were playing softball. I was played on travel teams. I started traveling when I was like 10 years old. And I played in the top 3 teams in the nation all the way to college. I got a softball scholarship. And I really do think that did help keep me out of trouble, because if you're a top athlete, you have to practice a lot. So there was really no time to get in trouble, especially when you grow up in a neighborhood or area where there's all this chaos around you. Because I grew up in an area where you can't even walk home because you're gonna get jumped or something, you know what I mean? But if you have that thing you're focused on, it will get you to bigger places, I think. Right after college, I got a phone call, and I had 2 brothers. One was 17 and one was 19. The 17-year-old, he wasn't in a gang, but where we grew up with, you're easily affiliated. And it's easy to get caught up, and they had gone to a party. He got into an argument with a girl at the door. They knew each other from junior high. She went and told her boyfriend, who was on drugs and whatever, and he was only 15, and he came out and shot him there. And he died later that night. He was just a senior in high school. He played football on the football team, and he didn't even get to graduate. 5 months later to the day, since my first brother died to my second brother, I remember getting the call again, and it was almost unreal. That's when it really set in, like, no way this can happen to you 2 times. Like, you know, it's unheard of to have 1 person killed in your life, but then 2, 5 months to the day. And so I think everybody deals with death differently. I think it's important to feel everything it is you're gonna feel. I was really angry for a while. I would cry every single day. I would, you know, sometimes I would be sad, sometimes I would be happy. And so I think it's really important to feel the emotions, but not to live in the emotions. And I know that now, and I know it's easier said than done, because when I was going through it, I definitely lived in the emotions. I was depressed and sad, and you know, but one of the ways I coped with getting out is that I threw myself into work, and I don't think that was a bad thing at the time. After a year of doing nothing, I went back to work, and I worked at the radio station, and I was just working for free, just keeping myself busy. Again, I think later that stuff catches up to you too. I did some therapy and things like that, but at the moment, that's what I needed. So I think there's a lot of different phases that people go through, and just accept the way you're feeling and know that it's okay, and know that you're not alone even though you feel you're alone, and know that things will get better over time, but it's not gonna miraculously get better tomorrow. But as long as you keep working on it and are cognizant of it and know it, I know you can heal.
We all deal with setbacks and loss, some more than others. In Geena's case, she suffered the unbearable loss of both her brothers. Geena found herself in a dark place, a place where a path forward didn't seem possible. Luckily, she had surrounded herself with a social network that she could trust. She had coworkers to help her carve a new path. You see, as a high school student, softball helped Geena find focus and gave her an alternative to gang life. It helped keep her safe and allowed her to reach her goals in a positive way. As an adult, after her brothers were killed, Geena's radio career helped her in the same way to find purpose and offered an alternative to the destructive effects of depression and anger. She recognized her emotions, she allowed positive people into her life, and she found a way to heal.
So when I went back to work at the radio station, I didn't want to. I was depressed, home for about a year, wasn't eating, wasn't doing anything. And my old boss called me. He's like, get out of that house and come back. And I was like, okay. He's like, no one knows where you, because he knew I was embarrassed at the time. Like, no one knows what happened. They're all new people. You can work as little or as much as you want. And so I literally started the next day, thank God. And at first, I just dove into work, and I made all this group of new friends, and I had so much fun. And first time I shared my story on the radio was the moment I knew I was gonna stay in radio, because I hated to be on the radio, believe it or not. I don't like being in the public eye. So that's been a real struggle with me, like how to deal with the criticism and not fire back. So after about a year of being on the radio, I didn't want to be on the radio anymore because I couldn't handle it. But for whatever reason, I went on air and I shared my story about my brothers. And to this day, I've not got so many emails, so many messages from people saying, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being so open. Whether they had lost someone or not, it helped them. And at that moment, I realized, look, most of the time we're joking on the radio, but when I have something important to say and it's gonna help people, then I can put up with the other criticism and stuff. And now 14 years later, I'm still here.
It's interesting to hear that when Geena allowed herself to be vulnerable with her pain and loss, she actually coped with it better, connecting with her audience through the power of empathy. In my experience, there are 3 things in life that you should never have to apologize for. Never apologize for being on time. Never apologize for being kind. And never apologize for being you. When Geena stopped trying to minimize and ignore her upbringing and instead she started owning it, her life changed drastically. As soon as she allowed herself to be vulnerable with her audience, she unlocked both personal and community healing. Geena had a choice. She could allow a few negative people to force her to quit her career, or she could allow her own positivity to shine with warmth on everyone around her.
I realized that it was just me. Like, all my friends that I thought would judge me or whatever, they were all there for me to this day. They're there for me. If anything, it made me more relatable. It made me more honest. It made me more real. I would like to tell people that it's okay to be embarrassed, but also you'd be surprised how much support you get when you're honest and you're truthful and you just stick to who you are. People welcome you more than you would think. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And I think no matter what age, no matter what ethnicity you are, it's important for you to stand up for your values and what you believe in. As long as you're being a positive influence on one person and one person takes away from whatever it is you have to say, it's worth it. Is what you're spreading positive or is it negative? Is it educating people or is it bringing people down? And I think with this generation, you have the power to choose which way you want to go. And I would hope you would choose the positive way.
Geena is passionate about not being a victim of her circumstances. She took control of her emotions, her goals, and path to achievement. But she didn't stop there. Geena is an inspiration to others, and she had created a network of positive and inspiring people who want to tell other young girls that they too can rise. Using her power as a radio host, she reached out to her community and cultivated the resources to start a movement that she believes in. She co-founded the Girls Empowerment Conference, which is held annually every April for hundreds of teens from underserved communities. The annual event assembles successful women from the community to share their journey and inspire hundreds of teenage girls to be fearless and confident leaders.
So we started a Girls Empowerment Conference officially 4 years ago, and it started because I would go to different high schools and speak to girls, and my intention of going and speaking was to show people that, look, I come from the same places you come from, but when I tell them my story, when I tell them what happened with my brothers, when I tell them where I grew up, they can relate to it. And I was speaking at smaller conferences, and I said, why don't we just do this one big one for teenage girls? So I got together with two of the smaller conferences that were going on. I said, why don't we just join and become a big one? And then we'll get the radio station behind it, we'll get sponsors and all that. And boom, that's how it happened 4 years ago. We have it at a nice hotel downtown San Diego. We bus the girls in. A lot of people have never even been to downtown. They've never seen a nice hotel, and the girls dress up, kind of business professional. And it's just a day to show them that there's more than just their little circle, and that was the point of doing it. And I think it's really important for kids and whoever to know that it doesn't matter where you came from. It's up to you to how you want to live your life. And do you want to be a statistic, a stereotype, or do you want to kind of crave your own path? And I think that's so important from wherever you come from to just have a dream and go do it and show people that you can accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish no matter where you came from.
So you found your voice. You are the awesome host of an incredible radio station. You've gotten all these awards, all this success. What is the power of like a voice? I mean, you use your voice for good and you uplift females and inspire them to get out of whatever tough circumstances they have come from.
Yeah.
Like, can you just kind of just articulate your thoughts on the power of a voice, or if you have any encouraging thoughts for viewers to use theirs for good?
Yeah, I mean, the power of your voice, whether it's to one person that's listening to you or a million which listens to us per week, it's so important to be wise with your words and know what you're putting out in the universe. I've definitely made mistakes where I probably said things I shouldn't have on the radio, you know, but it's, again, you learn from your mistakes and you realize like the things you post, the things you say are going to impact people. And the way I look at it is like, do you want to bring people up, raise people up, or bring them down? And you can really just, for me, by even sharing my experiences, people will message me on Instagram and say, hey, thanks for sharing that. It made me feel a little better today because I'm going through the same thing. So just remember that even nothing is too small. Even if you're just helping one person, then you did your job for that day.
There's so many kids out there going through a lot of adversity. I mean, and from my experience, a lot of them put these masks on and pretend like they're okay, and they don't really articulate their problems or seek counsel or therapy, and they just kind of bundle up inside. You've been through a tremendous amount of adversity from your family life. What advice would you give to kids who, you know, might be having struggles in different ways that are relatable? Maybe it's a different story, but the same feeling. How do you cope with that?
Find what works for you. Sometimes that might be traditional therapy. Sometimes that might be journaling. Sometimes that might be like a friend. Sometimes that's your parent. Sometimes it's a school teacher. Find what works for you and do more of that is what I always tell people. And there's not one way for anybody, you know? But I would say don't give up, because when I first started going to therapy, I hated my therapist, right? I think I went through like 5 till I found a good one. And then I found some other type of healers and different things like that. That's a much longer story, but my point is that find whatever worked for you and do that. And it could even be just journaling.
So from my experience, a lot of these kids out there kind of suffer from not having a surrounding of encouraging people, whether it be friends or family. They might have these goals or dreams or passions, and they're discouraged from doing them because they might not have a great paycheck. You've been a rock star radio host. Your passion for music, correct me if I'm wrong, derived from your family just loving music.
Yeah.
What advice would you give for those students out there who are just, you know, maybe need a little encouragement, just that extra push to pursue their goals and dreams?
I always say follow your dreams. No dream is too big. I hate when people are like, oh, you know, they want to be more practical. No, do what's going to make you happy. do what you're passionate about, and everything else will help. When I first started making making money radio, I was not making money. I could barely survive. And I just kept going through it, and it paid off. So I would say dream big.
You've accomplished so much in a short time. What would you say to these young gals out there who just kind of need a role model? I mean, just what encouragement would you shed on them just to find their confidence and find their power to pursue those dreams?
Yeah, I think it's important to uplift each other, and it's important to find role models, but it's also important to be each other's biggest cheerleaders, especially as women. I think there's this false misconception that there's not enough room for everybody, that it's a competition, and it's not like that. I have a great group of friends that all do the same thing I do, and we're not competing with each other. We're lifting each other up. We get on podcasts together. When we have Girls Empowerment Conference, I have them come speak. And so I think it's really, really important, instead of creating a division amongst women, unite.
Geena's personal journey and her choice to find optimism through depression and pain is literally changing the world. She believes in herself, and she believes in you.